No, but it's interesting. And similar to the discussion around AI. A couple of weeks ago, I was with a friend, and we, was kind of late night, and then we got into a cab, and we're just driving home from a dinner, from a business dinner, actually. And we noticed that the cab driver, he did not use GPS-based navigation system. He just, when we asked him, why are you just not using your navigation system like Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever? His response were interesting. He said, like, well, he seemed frustrated about all this technology uh, advances developing so fast. So he said, well, I think AI is going to make us more dumb.
Hmm.
And I said, well, what's going to, and so he compared this to GPS-based navigation systems, where he said, well, 10 years, or I don't know, 15 or maybe even 20 years ago, we all were still using paper-based maps to navigate. And so I knew exactly the streets and where I should navigate. And I can, get my clients in my cab from A to B just by, using my brain. And now he outsourced that brain capacity to a GPS-based navigation system, and he's basically just the operator of the cab anymore. And maybe in a couple of years from now, it's even not him gonna be operating the car, but maybe an autonomous car. So, well, job gone. And we discussed this a little bit, because we rely on AI to solve problems and make decisions and automate tasks and all this stuff. So what do you think? Is this actually making us smarter by freeing us to think bigger and interact more with people again? Or is it actually making us more dumb by eroding critical skills and judgment?
Yeah, wow. All right, just hit me with the big societal, question there. I think a lot of it comes down to the question of what do we replace that time and that brain power, like where are we like reallocating it? I mean, again, to use the sort of outsourcing metaphor, for companies, they have typically outsourced things that they did not feel were core to what their business is, where their differentiation is, where their comparative advantage is, and that was a strategy to actually allow them to double down on the things that they can do that they can't outsource. And so I think there's a bit of a metaphor for that of, I mean, if I'm turning over certain, labor tasks that took a lot of my time, but maybe actually weren't adding a lot of value to my net life or my net outcome, the ability to outsource some of that to AI, can be incredibly valuable if I recover that time and able to put it towards more productive uses. Now, again, this is really nice in theory. I think the big questions everyone is wrestling with is like, okay, how malleable and fluid is that reallocation? Okay, if I'm still here in the car, I didn't have to learn the maps. I've recovered that time, but I'm still stuck here behind this wheel. Am I actually now productively like harnessing that time, in some other way? I mean, I don't think there's going to be one universal answer to this. I think it's going to be highly varied on, different jobs, different people. And yeah, I'm not so naive as to think that it's going to be an easy transition for everyone. I think it's going to be I frame this as like, yeah, you're asking me this massive societal question. I think it's going to be probably the quintessential question for society for this next 10, 20 years is how do we adapt collectively, given this shift that's going to happen?
I think that's a very balanced way of looking at it. And Scott, before this conversation ends, we have a new tradition on this podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest without knowing who my next guest is. So that's a question that has been left for you. And the question is, what do you tell yourself you should be doing that you are not doing?